Okay, now for the 15th task, is it? Yeah, for the 15th task. So we are going to update the console.py um, to be able to call the update method by passing it an ID, a name of attribute and an attribute, and you will be able to update the object. So um, so here you know that from our last implementation, this is going to work for in a situation where we pass the class dot methods braces then followed by the ID. But if we should excuse me, if we should call update, like if we should use this command, then our implementation here, it doesn't handle these extra arguments age and 150. Let's say for instance, if I should run this and I'll say let's run this one. Now it shows, so we see here that age is 200. So we are going to implement this so that when we call user.update and then we pass in the ID, attribute name and attribute value, we'll be able to update that attribute. So for instance, let's just pass this here. It's not supposed to work, but yeah, no instance found. So let's do it. So here we know that this is supposed to be the initial input, assuming that this is what we want. This is the initial input, or whatever you want to call it. So now if we get the arg from the command line and then if we split it by the dot, the arg, and then we save it to this arg list, the arg list is going to have two items at index 0 and index 1, which means this arg list is going to be it's going to be user, then followed by from this part. So here we see that now, which means user is at index 0, which is the class name, and then index 1 is the method and the ID arguments, all of them. So here what we did here is we took the item at index 0 and save it as incoming class name, which we know that here user is the incoming class name. So arg list, know that arg list 0 is equal to user, which means that arg list at index 1 will be this part. Will be this part. So again, what we did is to take this arg list, which is at index 1, and we split it by the opening braces, which means, and we save it to this command, which means this command has update at index 0 and this other part at index 1. And then index 0 here, which is this command. Let's see, command at index 0, we know there is the incoming method, and then the one at index 1 is just the extra arguments, like we named them. We know that now we split it by the opening braces, so we only have this part left. So we save this, the command, the index at 0, which is the method name, we save it as incoming method. And then again, now we are left with this one, which is command 1. So what we did here is we take this and then we split it by the closing braces, which is this part. So by splitting it by the closing brace, we are now left with we're supposed to be left with something like this. Comma, we'll be left with something like this. So now this is now we know that command 1 is all of this. After we must have split it by the closing braces here. So now we are left with the item at index 0, which is the ID, age, and the attribute value. So that's what we did here. We took the item at index 1 and then after we must have split it by the closing braces, we just take the item at index 0. That is after splitting item at index 0, which is this part, because this empty string is at index 1, so we save it as incoming extra arguments. And then now that we've done this, so we know that this incoming extra argument is now this part. Let me take this off. This is now incoming extra argument. Incoming extra arg. So now that we know that we are left with this, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to modify these our method construct. But before we do that, if you look here, we see that this incoming extra argument which we have here is, although it is just one item, but inside this one item is separated by commas. So we are going to split it by the commas again. But before we do that, we are going to modify this method construct. So now again, I have to point something out. So what we are going to do is so let's split this. Let's split it by the comma. Let's say that all args will be equal to incoming extra argument dot split. So we'll be splitting it by the comma. So this way we now know that all args at index 0 is now id equal to id, and then we know that all args at index 1 is now equal to the attribute name, and then we know that all args, which is the item at index 2, is now equal to attribute value. Now that we've successfully split this, so this is the part where we modify our method. So what we are going to say is we are going to say if incoming method is inside the method dictionary, then again we are going to separate what we do when the incoming method is update. So we are going to say if incoming method name is not equal to update. If it's not equal to update, then we are going to use this method construct. What am I doing? We are going to use this method construct, but if it's equal to update, what we are going to do is we are going to say else. So now we know that this method construct here is going to handle any command that is not update. So far is either count, destroy, show, or this part will handle it. But if it's update, what we want to do is we are going to first say that object ID will be equal to this arg0. Yeah, because we already said it here that after splitting ID as index 0, attribute name at index 1, attribute value at index 2. So the same thing, we are going to pick this attribute name, and then the third one, which is the attribute value. Let me push this down. Okay, we are going to say it is attribute value. We know that is the item at index 2. So now that we've gotten all these arguments, so the next thing we are going to do is now to construct a method call like this one we already have here. So what I'm going to do is to just copy all of this. Let me copy it properly. I'll copy this one here and I'll paste it here. So, but we know that if we are going to be running with we are going to be calling update, is expecting something like we have to pass in the incoming class name followed by ID, followed by attribute name, and followed by value. So because of that, we are going to add more formatting here. Let me move this to the side. So now if we are calling update, we call update then followed by the object ID, and then after object ID followed by the attribute name, after the attribute name followed by the attribute value. So we are going to take this part off, we don't need it. So well, before I use this pattern, I did it with regex, regular expression, but it went well. But thing is, this way seems more fun. I don't know. So I believe you understand what we did here. After splitting the whole thing, now we grabbed the ID, which is at index 0, attribute name index 1, and attribute value at index 2. And then we use this check to separate the method construct for update. And then here we pass the arguments that we got from the command line to these variables: object ID, attribute name, and attribute value. And then we constructed the method call. Then we passed in these arguments, because we know that well, let's just run this. First, say quit. Let me clear. Let's go to the top again. So if I run this now, we already know that so we see here that we show the object which has the attribute value as 200. So let's try to update the attribute age. So we want to update it as 150. We press enter. Now let's show this again and see if it works. So we see here that age is now 150.